Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Tubeless Creek Instagram live broadcast. I am Jason Haas, as always. My guest this week is going to be Pilar Brito, who has just exploded onto the wine scene in the last year, doing some of the most dynamic and compelling kind of video education content that there is. I think her story is super interesting. I think her content is great. So I can't wait for you to meet her. But while we wait for people to join, as I always do, I wanted to share a few pictures of what's going on. We are in the middle of really a lovely rainstorm. So I took a couple pictures that'll give you a sense of what it looks like right now. It is not one of the aggressive California winter rains where you're getting buffeted by wind and hail and all of that. Instead, it's just this sort of gentle, steady rain. We're at about, I don't know, 2/3 of an inch so far. I'll show you a couple more pictures of what it looks like. So anyway, this is kind of a beautiful backdrop for what we're looking for. We're still at only about 60% of our rainfall that we would expect to date for this point in the winter, but it's supposed to rain a little more tomorrow, then clear up for the weekend, which is great, and then rain again next week. So I feel like we're in great shape. We have not seen any bud break, so we're using this time to get going on our pruning. This is a Roussan block, relatively newly pruned. We're basically done with all of the trellis blocks like that and getting to work on the dry farm blocks. We also have our sheep, who, this is obviously not taken today with a nice blue sky. This was last week. But this is go time for them. I cannot imagine a happier time of year for sheep than in Paso Robles than early March. In addition to what's going on in the vineyard, we've been bottling. So we bottled some of our lighter weight red wines last week. So Grenache, Counoise, Terre Noire, and Côte Tables. The Counoise will be the first of those to be released. It's going to go out to Wine Club members in this month's shipment. Keep your eyes on your email for the rest. And then finally, last piece that we're working on right now is we're working on blending the white wines from 2024. So we've spent this week around the blending table. I'm actually sitting at the blending table right now. I'll show you it when I'm done sharing pictures. But we've been tasting through about 50 different white lots to come up with the 2024 varietal wines and blends that we're going to be making. So we got barrels down all through the cellar. We've got graduated cylinders everywhere. I will show you my notes from this week's blending, and the take-home messages are that quality is really high, quantity is really scarce, and so that happens partly because we had lower yields, fewer tons per acre in 2024. We think because of the pretty relentless heat in the second half of the year, but also we're getting less gallons of wine per ton of grapes than we expect. And I think that's probably also a function of the heat. So anyway, fair warning, when you do see announcements for releases of 2024 whites, I apologize, they are going to be scarce. So act on them when you see them. Okay, so I'm done sharing. I, as promised, wanted to show you the blending table. Here we are. So this was all 8 of us sitting around the table all of this week, and we're about 2/3 of the way done. So we're done with the Esprit, working on the Côte Tables, and ready to taste the varietals that result. Okay, I am going to now ask Pilar to join, and then I can't wait for you all to meet her if you don't know her already. Through the invitation, and hopefully this works as smoothly as it did during our test. Hello, Pilar.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Totally my pleasure. Thanks for joining me, taking a piece out of your Wednesday.
Yeah, absolutely. More than happy to. I've been looking forward to this. Hey, everyone who's watching.
Super cool. So I gave a really brief intro into kind of some of the things that I think are super cool about the work that you do right when I started. I'm not sure if you were on yet, but
I wasn't. I saw the bottling updates, and that's all I got.
Great. Well, it's probably a lot better for you to tell people what you do than it is for me to tell people what you do. But I want to start at the beginning. So Can you talk a little bit about sort of how you came to discover wine in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. So I did not grow up in a wine drinking family. My mother doesn't drink at all, although she's liking orange wine. A couple times I've introduced her to orange wine. She's like, ooh, okay. But doesn't drink at all. And my dad, like, he'll have a glass of wine or a martini or something, but I mean, really, the way I grew up, like a $10 bottle of wine for him was like a pretty big deal. I think, that is slowly changing a little bit because my parents are very receptive to what I'm into, but I did not grow up in a winemaking or a wine family whatsoever. I think the first sort of like trigger for me was we did move to Europe when I was a kid. And I think that, the culinary scene in the US just wasn't even what it is now. So I remember like, I wasn't drinking wine, I was a kid, but like trying cheese for the first, like good real cheese for the first time and like trying real Parmesan and being like, oh my God, what is this? Because I just never had that before. So that definitely triggered like a love of travel and food. And I think for anyone who loves travel and food, wine is kind of a natural next step. But it really wasn't until I got to law school that I got super into wine. I was sort of like vaguely into it in undergrad, or I thought I was. I was drinking like Andre at college parties, so I definitely wasn't. But I was interested in getting more into it. Like it was always something that I thought I would like. It was always something that seemed tied into the other things I was interested in. And I was sort of at this stage of life in like my early mid-20s where I knew I had more of a promise of good disposable income in the future, and I wanted to kind of like grow into my more sophisticated lifestyle. So I used, or at least so I thought, but it was. So I used law school as a way to really get into wine. My law school had this very intense wine
Right.
society, where the board, a few students are kind of the board of the wine society every year and coordinate it, but it's been going on for decades. And they bring different producers in from around the world to give tastings to the law school and introduce them to their wines totally for free, just with the idea that, you guys don't have any money now because you're
Right.
students, but you're about to, and you're going to be really great customers. And for anyone watching this who's in the industry, it really works. I mean, I had the pleasure of trying like Chateau Margaux and Vegas Sicilia Unico for free, and like Bollinger came every year, and now every time I need to give someone a gift, like Bollinger is just one of my go-to. So it really did build like a lot of affinity. So I joined the board of that. I was one of a few students that coordinated with all the producers, took them out to dinner when they came to campus, led tastings for the wine school, or led wine tastings for the law school every week. Started doing my own wine education programs, ran some on the side for other students who just kind of wanted to learn more and get more comfortable with tastings. Did blind tasting competitions. I competed in like left bank Bordeaux tasting competitions,
Oh,
which are a real thing. Yeah, couldn't do that now. Like I swear, if I tried like a Saint-Julien and a Sana Steph side by side, there's no way I could tell you. But back then I was okay at it. And I started doing my certification. So I did like the level 1 Court of Master Sommelier certification. It's a pretty easy entry level course,
yeah.
definitely for beginners, but it sort of like kicked off me wanting to do more. After law school, I felt like, wine is really what I want to go into, but I also just spent all this money on law school. I should probably try being a lawyer. So I moved out to California, closer to wine country, moved out to California, became a lawyer, and started just pursuing wine as much as possible on the side. So, because I was still madly in love with it, just was making friends with like every somm in my neighborhood and trying to get tasting groups together. I did the WSET level 3 certification almost 2 years ago now. And I'm getting my WSET diploma right now, which for those who aren't familiar, it's the highest level of the WSET. It's like a 2-year program with 5 exams and a paper, and I have 1 exam left, so very happy about that. But that was
That's a
sort of,
super big deal.
thanks. I'm excited about it. It feels like I've been a student for a very long time. So like I think I want to do the Masters of Wine after this, but I'm like, man, this is a lot of school. So at this point in my life. So
I want to give an absolute endorsement to what you said about going out and talking to some of the like university wine societies. I've done that at Berkeley and at Stanford, going to speak to
right.
their wine societies, and like it has been a super super rewarding and valuable experience, and great also just because you're connecting with these incredibly sharp, interested minds at a stage where they're just starting to learn about wine. I think it's super cool.
Exactly. Yeah. They're going to be your best customers. Like if you can create a really great personalized experience for them and get them comfortable with wine, like just as they're about to start their wine journey and like kind of come of an age and an income where they can really be interested in it. It's like, it's the ideal scenario. So I'm really glad to hear you guys are doing that. I would highly, highly encourage anyone to do it. It was a great experience for me, but I think it really pays off for the producer as
And
well.
I didn't even realize that Yale did that, which is
Yeah.
interesting because my wife went there for grad school. My dad was a graduate of
Oh,
Yale,
really?
so
Oh my gosh, you should go to the law school. I'll put you in touch. You should
perfect.
absolutely go. I think there's definitely more of a focus on like European wine. I mean, it just is like a little
East Coast.
closer, so it's more natural. But you know, like Skurnik comes, Sotheby's comes. Yeah. Anyway, we can talk about that offline. But yeah, you should definitely go. I'm sure they'd love to have you.
Awesome. So did you have an aha wine, like something that opened your eyes to the possibilities of that wine could be something really special?
It's probably Chateau Margaux.
I mean, not bad.
I think that was the first tasting I did. That was the first one. That was the first programming at the law school where, you know, Chateau Margaux came every few years or so, and that was the first program that we had when I was in my first year. It was the first tasting I went to, from what I remember. And I had like decent wine before then. I'd been trying to get more into it, but that was the first wine I tried where I was like, oh wow, there is a huge difference. Like this idea that, and within certain price ranges, and it certainly depends on the producer, I get the idea that you can't really blind taste and fully discern price, because it does depend on the producer. A lot of factors go into price, and I get that. But this idea that like people can't tell the difference between like a $10 bottle of wine and like Chateau Margaux, I'm sorry. They're like, I drink it and I was like, I can immediately tell the difference, and I've never had a bottle of wine like this. So that was probably my aha moment. But it's hard for that not to be. I mean, it's Chateau Margaux. So
Pretty good wine to have an aha moment with.
yeah, exactly.
So I mean, you worked as a lawyer while you were creating this whole kind of wine educator infrastructure for yourself. And that sounds to me like an awful lot to be doing. Like, how did you balance those two pieces of what you did?
It was kind of horrible. I'm not gonna lie. Like it was
Because it's not like being
necessary.
a junior lawyer. Like, it's not like that's an easy life that leaves you lots of free time.
No, it was kind of doing both was kind of horrible. I don't know. I would both recommend it to people, because I think that if you're trying to learn more or break into an industry that you don't have a lot of experience in, you kind of need to put in the work and like establish a name for yourself in some other way, which requires work outside of your day job. Like it just does require side hustling something. But I also wouldn't recommend it because it was terrible, honestly. But no, it was really tough. So basically, about a year ago, I felt like, you know, I've been a lawyer. I was a lawyer for 4 years. I actually just left, and you know, maybe I'll go back. But right now, I'm focused on wine the full time. So yeah, about a year ago, I was like, you know, I've been a lawyer for 3 years. It's a great career. Certainly don't hate it. Work with great people. At the same time, I've always wanted to go into wine. I think I've given law enough of a try to know that I still want to be in wine. And I've also been doing all these wine certifications. Like, I think I've tested the thesis enough. The problem I was running into was that when I was having just kind of informational interviews with people in the industry, and I was so lucky that wine people are so nice. Like everyone was willing to get on the phone with me and kind of share their 2 cents about, you know, how I could break into the industry or things I should be considering or where they could see me slotting in. Even though like Bobby Stuckey got on the phone with me, like for those of you who don't know, he's like one of the most elite master sommeliers in America. He's never met me. I don't know why he did that. He spent like 45 minutes on the phone with me. So wine people are very nice. But I was doing all these informational interviews and everyone was like, you know, I'm really struggling with figuring out how you can break in, because I think that basically you have to start from scratch because you don't have any experience in the wine industry. You have good certifications, but you don't have service experience. You don't have distributor, importer, whatever experience. And as good as your certifications are, that real life experience is what really matters. At the same time, even if you're willing to start from scratch, I think an employer is going to have a very hard time believing you, because you put in, you know, all this work in law school, you've been a lawyer for a while. Like, I think someone's really, even though I was like, I'll totally do it, I think they were just like, I don't think people are going to believe you. And just like the amount of experience you have, the age that you're at, I think it'll be really tough to figure out the right place to slot you in. So that was when I started to think, okay, well, I've got to figure out another way to break into the wine industry because this is what I really want to be in. And I've sort of put myself in this very weird position unless I want to do wine law, which I didn't. And I was also representing a lot of CPG companies when I was a lawyer. I work with a lot of like startups and venture capital firms. And I was seeing the way that they use social media. And it was something that I just hadn't thought of super seriously. Like going to like a very traditional East Coast law school, the word influencer is like not a favorable term. And I think that's changing. But I started to see how these companies were using social media and how in many cases the founders were influencers and how it just provided them so much more of an opportunity to establish their brand, connect with their community, share their thoughts. And I was like, I've been disregarding this for a long time. It's really clearly really powerful, at least from what I'm seeing with the companies that I represent. I have this whole industry that I really want to be involved with. I'm super passionate about. I have a lot I want to say about it, but no one's going to hire me. So let's give this a try. So I knew nothing about social media. So I basically started just like studying everything I could in my free time. I was watching like YouTube tutorials or listening to podcasts for content creators in the morning to like try to learn how to use the platforms. Fully, like I'd never been on TikTok. Like I really knew nothing. I don't even think I followed many influencers.
So when was this? How long ago was this?
This was about a year.
Okay.
Yeah, this was like late January or maybe it was early January of 2024. So this was about a year. And the great thing about all of this is like the information is out there. It takes a bit for it to like click, but if you want to teach yourself, I mean, anyone can do it. So I started kind of like, I would like listen to all this educational, all these educational resources on how to use social media, how to think about building out your platform, how to think about like communicating with your community in the morning. I would go to work, and then at night, which, being a lawyer, it was usually late at night, I would script, like whatever I thought I wanted to talk about next. And then I moved into my boyfriend's house. You can see this is the kitchen I filmed from. He has a much nicer kitchen. We live across town, which in LA is like a huge deal. So I would pack up a suitcase on Friday because I was working on the other side of town. I'd pack up a suitcase on Friday with like 8 outfits. And then I would wake up, I would drive here. I would wake up Saturday morning, shoot 8 different videos, edit all day Sunday, and then rinse and repeat and go back to work for a year.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I'm not doing that anymore, thank God. But like that's how I balanced it, if you call that balance. I mean, it definitely took some trade-offs. Like my friends were really understanding. I was just like, guys, I can't really do dinners or hang out as much this year as I would like to. Hopefully it'll pay off and we can do that again soon. But it definitely was. I'm glad I've made the transition. Doing both at the same time was really hard.
It's a lot. It's a lot. So were you immediately comfortable in front of the camera, or was it something that you had to work up to? Was it?
No. My boyfriend just walked by actually, and I'm not going to make him get on Instagram Live with you, but he could tell you, like, it used to take me hours just to film one 1-minute video. Because I was so uncomfortable. I didn't understand how to have a flow. I didn't understand how much you could edit out like the wrong phrases and how you could just kind of keep talking and then edit it to make it look a lot more natural. He would come in and I would just be like screaming at the camera basically because I was so frustrated. And I was very uncomfortable putting myself out there too. Like, I think that, it's one thing when you're a lot younger. Like, I think if I don't have kids, but I think if I had kids, I would just encourage them to be putting themselves and their thoughts out there as early as possible, because I think you just have less of a mental barrier around that. But, you get to like a certain age, like I'm 30, where you're reasonably established, you've been doing things well, you're trained to do one thing. So you kind of like have it in your head that what you put out there should be like perfect and should be complete and should have like social validation. Whereas like, I was going out there doing something I was absolutely terrible at, probably looked like an idiot at. If you go back and watch my early videos, they're not good. And also, like, I had, just didn't have very many followers. So now my friends, luckily, have always been, and family and partner have always been very supportive. But there were a lot of people who thought it was super weird at first, which it kind of was. They had a point. Now everyone thinks it's cool, but when I had like 500 followers, everyone was like, what are you doing? So no, I was not comfortable with the entire thing for the longest time.
Imagine, I think that's an experience that a ton of winery owners and winery folks, myself included, all had sort of when COVID hit, and all of the ways that we were used to communicating with our customers just vaporized like overnight. And we all had to figure out all this other stuff. Like, this whole Instagram Live thing that I started doing in March of 2020. Like, I had never used Instagram Live before. It was like, we had to all figure it out. So kudos for doing it.
This is my first time, by the way. I've never done an Instagram Live. So yeah, you're inspiring me because this is fun. It just feels like FaceTiming with a friend, but in front of, some other people, but, or with some other people, but it's fun. I like it. But yeah, this is my first one.
So the people, I mean, obviously the people who are here because they're your followers, I mean, they've seen your videos. For the people who have not, like, how would you describe them in a couple sentences? What are you going for in the videos that you record?
Yeah. So I think, and this is kind of another part of the reason I started the page to begin with, is I wasn't really like, there are a lot of wonderful wine influencers out there, but I wasn't kind of seeing this balance in the way that I wanted to see it. Basically, what I try to do with my content is make wine accessible while still retaining the very aspirational quality of it.
Yeah.
So I don't think that there's anything wrong with this whatsoever, but like, I'm not one of those wine content creators that's going and telling you like, you know, where to buy wine at like the cheap discount store, or, you know, I'm trying to, I think that a lot of content creation around wine and a lot of the wine industry in general feels that because people are intimidated by wine, they have to veer into like hyper accessibility. There's nothing wrong with that. There's certainly a market for it. But personally, when I think about where I was when I was first getting into wine at like early mid 20s, you know, maybe I didn't have a ton of disposable income yet and I didn't really know what I was doing, but I wanted to be into wine because I saw it as aspirational and I didn't want someone to like take that out of it. I just wanted someone to help me find a way in. So I kind of try to talk to my community as, even if you don't know much about wine now, you're going to become a sophisticated wine consumer. And I understand that wine is this beautiful, aspirational, mysterious global product. I am never going to try to take that out of it. I'm just going to try to help you ease into that a little bit and feel more comfortable with it. So it's kind of like the balance of accessibility and aspiration.
Yeah, I love it. And I think like a lot of your videos, you sort of end with "You got this," which like I think that's a really fun way of kind of encapsulating, like, yes, this is not a simple thing, but like it's also not impossible. You can get there.
It's totally learnable. It's totally learnable. I tell all my friends that because I'll do another part of the reason I started the page is, oh my God, my poor friend, or lucky friends, depending on how you look at it. I was like constantly doing wine tasting dinners for them, and I still do. And I would just lecture them about wine basically, but they like it. But anytime I have a friend who's like, oh, I can't tell the differences between wine, I don't know how to taste wine, I'm like, no, you do. It's just the people who taste professionally are constantly in tasting groups. They have like vocabulary sheets given to them for like, that help them like develop the right ways to talk about wine. They're constantly tasting in a different way that forces their brain to think about certain things. If you like food, you can taste wine. Like if you have any sense of flavor and any appreciation of flavor, you can totally do it. So that's what I always tell people. Like it's actually not that hard to learn. It requires a little bit of work, and I definitely don't try to say to my community that it doesn't take some work. Like I think I'm pretty open about the fact that like wine is a product to like fully appreciate it, where it does take work. I think this whole idea of like, you know, whatever you like is right, I think is somewhat true, but I think I think that there's like some use in like understanding the history, understanding the product, understanding the chemistry, and then you decide what you like. And then what you like is like what you like, and that's totally fine. But I think there's a little bit of work that makes the product so much more rewarding, and I'm pretty upfront about that.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that you show in some of the videos that you do, and something that I remember being this aha moment for me as I was trying to learn about wine, is like it's so much easier to understand what makes one wine different from another if you can taste them side by side.
Yes,
Like it's really hard to do it if you just have one glass in front of you, particularly before you develop the vocabulary to know what things are kind of supposed to taste like.
I
But
still can't do that.
I mean, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's genuinely hard. But like side by side, and I can't remember how long ago this was, but you did a video of like champagne versus prosecco or something like that. One of the
a long time ago.
maybe that was an early one, but that was that again, like you sort of laid out, here are the things that I expect. Can I actually do this? And when you taste them side by side, you realize, oh right, absolutely I can do this. And I think that's something that anybody who has embarked on any sort of like even semi-formal wine education realizes, but is still to the general public something that seems impossible sometimes.
Yeah, no, 100%. But no, it can very much be done. You just need the right structures in place. That's all.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, in this process where you've gone from like a year ago where you were just getting started to now where you've got, I don't know, 100 and something thousand followers on Instagram and lots on TikTok and other platforms, like was there a moment where you were like, oh boy, this is blowing up?
Yeah. There was actually. So I think that, and for anyone watching this who's like, whether you're, you know, a winery or a content creator, for anyone who's watching this, I think this is actually a really helpful mindset shift. when I started to blow up was when I had a very big mindset shift. So there were two things that I changed about my content that really led to that, and then it was a specific, like, it was basically in October. But I was putting out all this content because the only way to really get better and see what's working is to put stuff out there. But at the same time, I was listening to all of these podcasts, tutorials, information on what's working on social media. And I followed a bunch of strategists, so I was kind of constantly taking information about like what's working for other people, what's not, what are good first principles to go by. Because again, I was starting from zero. And the really big shift that I had was, or the really big two shifts I had were one, series-based content. Because before the fall, when I really started to blow up, I was kind of making these like one-off videos, like how to open a bottle of champagne, what is champagne versus Prosecco, like Napa Cabernets you should look out for. Like, you get the idea. I listened to something and I wish I remembered what it was. It could have been a combination of sources, but I was listening to something where it really clicked for me that I wanted to treat my page as a channel that people are tuning into over and over again and give them a reason to keep coming back. So it's not that everything has to be series based. Like when you think about how they do it on TV, like they'll have like a holiday special, or they'll have like some crossover or cameo or whatever, and you can still do those, but like you want to give people a reason to look forward to what's next and to kind of see your content and be like, oh, I like this. Okay, she said she's going to do more of this because it's a series. Let me follow her and come back. So the series-based content was huge. And when I started doing those, it really ticked up. The other thing that I sort of realized in tandem was that people's attention, like there's just so much demand on people's attention. I had to make it much more clear why they should spend any time on me and what I was talking about. I think that we see all these really successful content creators where they're just kind of talking about their lives or what they're interested in, and people are interested. So we think that we should go and do that same thing. What we don't account for, or what I didn't account for, is that those people have built up so much interest and trust over the years. And they started with making it very clear of why anyone should pay attention to them, offering value. And then now, like that, they're like a household name. People are actually more interested in whatever they're going to say. And when I was doing these one-off videos, I was really talking just kind of like about the technicalities of wine, as if I assumed that people were already interested in wine. And that's a really small proportion of the population who like actually, like, I mean, I don't know what you experience. You probably have customers who come into your tasting room and they do want to know about like the tannins and the viticulture and whatever. Most people just like, yeah, they want to have a good time. They want to have a good time. They want to understand how wine can help them have a good time.
And they want to know, and they want to know why. They want to know what sets you apart and why
Exactly.
why they should care in specific about this wine. They don't care about tannins and barrels. Sometimes they'll ask those questions because they feel like, oh, it's a question I know how to ask. But
Totally.
that's not what people care about.
Totally. And there's also nothing wrong with that. Like our attention is so divided. Like to care about like, hey, how is this going to add to my life and what sets you apart that should make me care? Like that's the right thing for everyone to be focusing on, in my opinion, at least at first.
Right.
I basically switched when I started doing the series from doing these one-off videos where I just talked about the technicalities of wine, assuming people already cared about wine enough to want to listen to that, to series where I talked about how wine can improve your life. So my name drop series is when I started really blowing up. And for anyone who hasn't seen that, I basically phrase it as wine is one of the many ways you can advance your career. And it's one of the things you are going to be presented in your career at business dinners, at client development, giving client gifts, with your boss, whatever, where you should know what you're talking about to look good, to help your company to get that promotion, to feel just more comfortable in these professional settings that might be new to you. And I talk about I call them name drop wines. So I say, like, if you're just starting to go to your first fancy business dinners with clients or investors, there are a handful of wines that always come up. You should know what they are. And then I kind of focus on one each week. I've been doing that for 5 months, so now it's more like every other week. But for a while it was every week. And I think that just really clicked for people because a lot of people at least have been in that situation. I've been in that situation. Like when I got out of law school and was going to like these fancy client dinners and people were name dropping all these wines, I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I was just kind of nodding. And I probably said, because I wanted to look like I knew what I was talking about, I probably said things that were just totally wrong and looked like even more of an idiot. So that sort of showed, like, that's one example of like, hey, wine can really improve your life. Here's how. Cult Classic series is the same thing. It's much more about like, it's another series I do where I talk about small producers that I think you should be paying attention to. Normally that would be like a wine nerd topic, but I phrase it as wine being this thing that can help you develop and express your taste in a world where everyone's kind of buying the same thing. People are struggling to figure out how to express themselves appropriately. Everyone kind of looks the same now, like Instagram face. And people want to differentiate themselves. People want to know that they have good taste, want to develop their taste, and want people to kind of think that they have good taste when they pull something out of their wine fridge at home. So I say, when you're thinking about that, it's not like you have to get all of these producers and you can still get the flagship wines, but you should look at some of these because these are ways you can build out a unique wine collection that represents you. So yeah, when I started doing that, it blew up quite a bit. And that was like October through December where my account really started taking off. And that's why.
Cool. Yeah. So we sort of, I think you mentioned briefly that you very recently, like a week ago, made the announcement that you were doing wine full time. Like,
yeah,
that seems like that must have been a pretty scary decision to do, or were you just so ready at that point? And
I was so ready. I mean, I've been thinking about it for like 9 months, probably. So I was so ready. I think that the thing that's still scary about it is, I still don't know what it actually, like what exactly it's going to mean. Like, I'm having some really great partnership discussions. There are a couple of producers I'm really excited to work with this year. Gonna have going to be going on some branded trips. Like, there are like some standard like content creator things that I'm very excited about that are definitely there. But I want to do more for the community that I currently have. And I'm still trying to figure out what that looks like. And I'm really paying attention to what people are asking me for. To try and figure out like, how can I get you guys these wines that I'm recommending? How can I get you guys better wine education? How can I bring you guys together to be talking? And then how can I monetize that too? Because, I have to make a living, obviously. And that part is still kind of coming together, and I'm doing like the more traditional content creator things while I figure that out. And that's the part that's a little bit scary because I don't exactly know how it's going to evolve. It will hopefully be something that hasn't existed before, so it's hard to predict. Otherwise, not really though, just because I was loving this commute. Like, I've been thinking about it for so long. You heard what my schedule was like. Doing both at the same time was like, after a year, I was like, I have to make a decision because doing both is impossible. And it felt like there was enough like community support and traction where something really good was going to come out of it. And it was, especially once I started really blowing up, that both gave me the confidence to make the jump, but also it made it impossible to do both full time. Like, before I really blew up, it was like kind of possible. It was not great, but it was doable. Once I, had 80, 90, 100K followers and like want to be interacting with everyone, responding to DMs, thinking about how I can make it a better experience for everyone, like that and being a corporate lawyer, just, they were not going to work. So I had to make a decision. And so little scary still, but I've been thinking about it for a long time, and it was like a necessary choice. It wasn't something I could have prolonged anymore.
Right. Everybody has a tolerance for having no time.
Exactly. Exactly. It still kind of feels that way because obviously anytime I had being a lawyer is just now being channeled into content. So it's not like I suddenly have all this free time. I certainly don't, but it's focused, which is nice. It's focused and has a mission, which is very exciting.
And one of the things it sounds like you're planning to do more of is your Substack.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. The reason for that is really, just the request I kept getting. Like, I kept getting all of these messages saying like, hey, I really want more information. I really want to know where I can buy these wines. I really want to list in one place. I really want your recipes. I'm going to launch a Substack chat soon. I'm just new to the program, so I need to figure out how to use it. But I've been getting a lot of requests for like, hey, we really appreciate how you respond to every DM, but have you thought about starting a chat so that we can all talk to each other? And I'm like, that is a great idea. So, because everyone in the community has so much knowledge to share too. Like, I'm constantly learning things from them. So Substack is just like, it's a really great way to go deeper because Instagram has time limits. And TikTok doesn't have as strict of time limits, but people only have so much attention span on social media. Like, when you're reading something, you can actually go like get a little bit more into it. Provides the opportunity for people to connect directly. And it also like helps me not play chess with the algorithm as much. Like, Instagram and TikTok are always changing the algorithms, and that's just a way where like I have my most engaged community on Substack. If people really want to reach me, or if people really want to hear more from me, I can always reach them there on a very detailed level and on the level they've been asking me for, which I really like. I'm not going to like stop doing content on Instagram and TikTok, but I think that's going to be a really great resource for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly vouch. We and mostly me have written a blog for 17 years
I
now,
didn't
and
realize it'd been that long. I like your blog, by the way, but I did not
it
realize it'd been 17 years.
has been
We're
a
ahead of
really
the
long time.
game.
We started it in 2007, based on a recommendation from Mark Perrin, from our French partner, saying, "Hey, you should start a blog. It'll be really good for your search engine positioning." And I'm like, okay. And it turned out to be like such a valuable way of creating community, creating a kind of a place to share longer form thoughts on all of this stuff, which goes on in and around the world of an estate family run winery. It's been an incredible experience.
I'm
Way more.
so happy to hear that. And it is great, by the way. I've really enjoyed what I've read from you. And I think it's nice too, because like on Instagram, I mean, you guys have a great following too. Like on Instagram and TikTok, you get the reach, but you want to like, you have like a small proportion of your community that's your most engaged, like dedicated, you know, people, and you want to kind of feel like Substack is a better way to like keep everyone connected, that really is fully engaged. Or what platform do you guys use again? I've definitely read your blog, but I'm not sure what platform
We
it's on now that I
again,
just
we've been doing this for so long. We use Typepad.
Wow. Okay.
Um,
Do you guys ever think about switching, or do you think you're going to stick on it?
I have thought about switching. The downside is that there is really no good way that I have seen that you can transfer over like everything from content to comments to images to it's just a lot.
Yeah, I was gonna say Substack has some of those functionalities, but things like comments and stuff, I don't think so. So yeah, no, that makes sense. And also, if it's working, like keep at it.
Yeah,
It's great.
I mean,
Your blog is
it's
great.
a
I love
little
it.
it's a little clunky. It doesn't have some of the obviously the tools that Substack has. I don't know that it would be what I would choose if I were starting fresh, but at the same time, like it has such a valuable community. It's got whatever over 1,000 posts. It's got something like 5,000 comments that's collected over the years. It's a lot.
Very impressive. I aspire to that. Maybe we'll be talking in another 17 years, and I can tell you I've accomplished it.
Good luck.
Well, hopefully sooner than 17 years. Hopefully I'll talk to you sooner than 17 years, but maybe we can revisit the topic in 17 years.
That would be amazing. So I have one last real question, and then I wanna just give you a chance to say if people want to learn more how they do it. But the last real question that I have is like when you are doing your content, particularly the video content, do you have a specific audience in mind? Do you have somebody who you think you're talking to, or is that not the way you think about it?
No, that is the way I think about it. Because I think that I think the reason my content has done well is because I do think I'm trying to speak to a community that has always been there, but hasn't been as attended to be honest. And really it's not age specific, but it's me. It's who I was in law school. It's like, you know, typically, although I have some people who are younger on my page, which is great to me. I love seeing that a 19-year-old is interested in like grower champagne. That makes me so happy. But it's mostly like 25 to 45 coming into like a more sophisticated lifestyle, or aspiring to be in like have a more sophisticated lifestyle, sees wine as a part of that and is willing to put in a little bit of work and wants to learn more, but feels a little bit intimidated and wants to find a way in that feels welcoming and accessible. So that's, I mean, I'm really just talking to myself and who I was like 5 years ago, basically. And I'm still not part of the industry, right? Like, I mean, I am sort of now, but like, I had the privilege of staging at Osteria Mozza last week and shadowing the beverage director, which was like amazing. And you realize when you're there, I'm like, oh my gosh, the education gap is just huge. Like they were so nice, did not talk down to me whatsoever. I think there's a lot of like mutual respect for what we do, but I mean, I was taking in new information all night. So like, as much as I'm talking to myself 5 years ago, I'm still kind of talking to myself now of like, I'm still deeply passionate about wine. I see it as this beautiful, aspirational, elegant product. I want to keep learning more, but there's still so much to learn, and having people who are welcoming and friendly in the industry just kind of bring me along for the ride so that I can become that expert is like great. So I'm getting there, but like, it's still me. So yeah. anyone who fits into that category, and anyone else who's interested. I mean, I know a lot of people like in the industry, like SOMs, follow me as well, which makes me super happy, and hopefully they're getting something out of it too.
I'm sure they are. I mean,
Yeah.
I get some of it. So okay. So if people want to learn more, what's the best way for them to do that? I mean, obviously, follow you on the various platforms, but if, what else? How else?
Just like generally learn more about wine.
No, well, not learn about more about wine. I mean, that's a much larger question, but like learn more about what you do and connect specifically with you.
Oh yeah, definitely. So I mean, definitely the platforms. I try to be very responsive. I'm definitely much more responsive on Instagram than TikTok. I will say I just kind of have to focus on one platform. But you know, I'm at Bar Pilar with 2 R's at the end because I couldn't get the handle with 1 R. On both it's taken by like a bar in DC that has like 14 followers, and I don't think they ever post. I've thought about asking them for it, but anyway, it's at Bar Pilar with 2 R's. You can always like DM me. I'm more responsive to comments. So if you comment anything, I'll always try to respond to you on both Instagram and TikTok, but I will try to respond to DMs. I make a really huge effort to like go in every day and respond to as many as I can and interact with as many of you as I can. The best way moving forward, I do think is going to be Substack, just because within the next week or two, I'm going to have the chat. And that's kind of an area where like, yeah, highly engaged community of people who really know a lot about wine or really want to learn more about wine, really want to exchange knowledge, are going to be on there, which I think will be great. And then I'm going to have much more detailed information. Like on Substack, I have my recipes, but I also have like our cult classic seller where I'm talking about all of the, you know, small producers, why they're special, why I think you should be paying attention to them, where you can get them, farming practices, like all the details you could possibly want. I have like highlights of specific wine regions like California or the Sherry Triangle and producers I think you should be focusing on there. So any of those 3 platforms are great. I think it just depends on what you're looking for like the deepest engagement, probably Substack, but all 3 of them are fantastic and would love to see you guys on all 3 if, you know, any of you are interested in all of them.
Awesome. Okay, last thing. Anything new that you have coming that you can share?
Yeah. So actually something I have been wanting to do for a long time is more of a focus on dinner parties, because for a couple of reasons. One is, you know, I have this very core thesis of I want to show people how wine can improve their life. It's not just a drink, it is like a lifestyle. It is something that can be very, very important in your profession. It's something that can be very important in developing your taste. And I think the main role of wine, like beautiful, fine wine, is this incredible way to bring people together. And I think especially after the pandemic, like no one's having dinner parties anymore. It's like such a bummer. And I love them. Like I love hosting. I love bringing people together. And I just haven't had the time to do it this past year because I was a lawyer and doing this. So like that was just not, I mean, I would shoot 8 videos at once on a Saturday, like a dinner party on top of that was just not going to happen. But that is something I want to be focusing on. And I also think that, you know, there's some dinner party content that's very food focused on social media, and I'm a good cook. I love cooking. That will certainly be a part of it. But I want it to be very wine focused because I think that wine is sort of an afterthought in a lot of dinner parties in the U.S. Like I think you'll have someone hosting and they'll cook this whole elaborate meal, and then someone asks what they can bring, and they're like, oh, bring wine, and they don't give any specificity, and then someone shows up with a wine that like doesn't pair well, and to me it just like ruins the whole meal. Like I think it should be part of your entire creative vision for how you want guests to experience your home. And like doesn't mean they can't bring wine, but give them, you know, a little more instruction there around your creative vision. So I want to get people thinking about how wine can bring people together, and also when you are bringing people together, how wine is a part of the overall experience that guests are having in your home and should be something you're really thinking about. So that's a long way of saying dinner party content, which I think will be really fun.
Cool. Sounds fun to me. Awesome. Well, I cannot believe it. We went over. It's been 40 minutes.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Thank you.
We went way over.
So much for spending the time and sharing your story. Was super fun. Let's do it in real life at some point.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that would be great. I need to make it up soon. I mean, I guess it's kind of like rainy in California right now, but it looks gorgeous overall. So I can't wait to come up.
Awesome.
All right.
Cool. Well, thank you, Pilar Brito. Thank you for joining me. Everybody from the Tablas Creek world who joined me. I will be back in a couple of weeks. My guest is going to be Yvan Franck from Maison Mirabeau in Provence, who's the first French producer to get the new regenerative organic certification. And a super active person in the Regenerative Viticulture Foundation, and just somebody who I think is a super smart and interesting person in the world of wine. So if you join me for the first time this time, thank you. Hope to see you at an upcoming talk.
Thanks, Jason. Bye, guys. Nice to meet
Thanks,
you.
Pilar.